Good morning. This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And this is our first Avoid the Maze of 2024, which I'm really, really excited about because my guest today, as I read your bio, Karim, it was like you've lived in so many different places, you have so many different influences, and I'm looking at it thinking, have you achieved your goal? Is that all? Or what comes next? So give our listeners a little bit of background about who you are, and then we're going to talk about your journey.
Sounds great. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for the introduction, and very happy to be here. I like your show because it does have, very original, unique concept. It was a happy surprise to discover you. So thank you. About my journey. I mean, you're right. I have lived in lots of places. And fun fact, as we're recording right now, I'm on an island off the coast of Malaysia in Southeast Asia. So it's it's nighttime here. It's the morning for you. So my journey started very briefly. I was born in Canada, in Montreal. My parents are from Algeria, and I grew up in France. I also had some family in France. We moved to France. I spent most of my life in France. And I've never, been. I've always been quite undecided on what I want to do, in the future as I grew up. So I've done, for example, a lot of acting, and I thought I would become an actor. And when, one of my goals for the longest time was to win an Oscar. I'm sure I could still achieve it. And then I went in engineering school, did a few years, was great, loved science, but wasn't, my way. So I switched halfway to a business school, did an MBA, and within that program, I also changed major from sales marketing to purchasing and finance and so on. So I've seen it all, and I never really knew what I would be doing with all of this. Another fun fact, I've never used my MBA. I've never been to a job interview. But our journey is made of those decisions that we take, and no regret. We shouldn't have any regrets, because that's what leads us to where we are. So long story short, at the end of my studies, I had to do a semester abroad, which I did in Canada, because I was born there. I had a citizenship, but I've never been there since I was a baby. So I moved to Canada, spent 4 years out west, then I moved out east. And that's where I started my first business. I had in mind entrepreneurship at that point. I had in mind entrepreneurship for a few years, because I had started a career in sales and management, but always for someone else. And so I wanted to have a business of my own, and it just so happened that there was an opportunity. There was a big need in that new city I just moved in, which is Halifax, Nova Scotia, for those who are familiar, on the Atlantic coast. There was a big need for cleaning. I had no, particular passion for cleaning, but seeing, a large demand, I decided, hey, why not starting my own cleaning company? But responding to the actual needs, which was high standards of quality, being reliable, and providing a lot of value and really good service. So that has been the values of the company from day one. That was over 5 years ago now. And as a side note, again, it's a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people who want to get into business ownership, entrepreneurship, and often, they are looking for something new, a new concept, a new original, unique idea. You don't always have to find a new idea. You can do something that is already existing. I mean, cleaning companies in every city, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of cleaning companies, but just do it better than everyone else. Right. And in which case, that opens the door. If you have that mindset, that opens the door to any kind of business ventures. But anyways, I sidetrack. I tend to sidetrack a lot. I'm giving you
that's okay.
heads up.
It's
go ahead.
Interesting, as a podcaster listening to you, here is this young man who goes into the cleaning business. Now, I have 2 sons, okay? And it's funny because they grew up in a home that was always organized and clean. And then when I go to visit them, I go, oh my God, where did I go wrong? However, both of them in their business life are meticulous. So I find it interesting because
Yeah.
I'm sure your mother was scratching her head saying, he's starting a cleaning business.
Very likely, yeah, that's right. Yeah, our home always, was always sparkling clean and very well organized, but I was not. And to this day, I mean, you would see my desk here; it's pretty messy. But you're right. As a parent, you probably plant some seeds, and you never know where the fruits will come
Exactly.
in what area of their life. So that's a very interesting point. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. But yeah, back to my story. So this cleaning company, what I wanted to apply to it, not only gaining the experience of entrepreneurship, building a business from scratch, growing a brand, and so on, but also I wanted to apply the skills that I had, at that point gathered over 8-9 years, which was, sales and management. And we all have some skills and expertise that we can apply. We don't have to do it all. We have, as entrepreneurs, we have to surround ourselves with people that are smarter than us, and focus on what we are best at and what we like the most. In my case, it is sales, it is management, marketing, and so on. Finance and accounting, I'm really bad at it. So I try to have people who do it for me. But anyhow, along the way, because when you get into a business ownership, you usually surround yourself also with other business owners and entrepreneurs, and you start to see more and more opportunities coming your way. So that's something I've noticed, which is pretty exciting actually. The more you grow in your business, the more you see opportunities of things that you can do. And so two of those opportunities came the same year. The first one being to open another branch of that business in another city, Ottawa, in the capital, with a business partner, because I had grown at that point. We're talking 2021 now. A very strong brand and reputation, and a whole bunch of systems and processes in place in order to delegate the business or automate the business fully, and the business not requiring me as the owner. So I was pretty much fully hands off, and so it is you at that point usually fairly easy to just copy paste the model to another city with someone else, repeating the same process. So that's what we've done. And the same year, I came across an opportunity with propertyguys.com, which I'll talk about in a minute in a little bit more details. But basically, that opportunity was something quite different from what I've done, in the sense of not only it was a much bigger venture. I had to see many more years ahead. And I had to get some investors, which I'd never done before, to do some fundraising and get some investments. And then I had to operate in a city, in a region that I'm not from and not in, because I was in Halifax at that point, and we're talking Massachusetts. That's where I'm operating propertyguys.com. Which is, an interesting set of challenges that I decided to add to my journey. And that's what I do, to this day. Yeah.
I'm hoping what our listeners are hearing is that you made choices, but you thought about your choices before you got into them. So we often tell people, if you're going to start something on your own, follow your purpose, follow your mission. Well, sometimes we're not quite sure what that purpose and mission is until we start developing. You talk about starting the cleaning company back in the late 70s, early 1980s. I found myself to be a single mom, and I loved greenery around me. And so out of the blue, I started a business called Not Just Plants. And I went from business to business because I didn't want to go into homes, because people, individuals are always saying, oh, I don't have money to do that. So I went to the businesses and I said, look, I can put plants in your office. I can decorate it. I can take care of them. I'm going to be your go-to person. My problem at the time was I was just one person. And I was taught growing up, be careful who you share your ideas with, because somebody else is going to take them. So unlike you, I didn't reach out to create a network. I just tried doing it all on my own. And after about 3 years, I had to give it up because I realized I was not servicing my customers in the way I wanted to. Now I totally understand the things that I should have done back then. But you know what? Those mistakes have made me a better person today. And I think those are some of the things that you've seen along the way as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I see that often with so for instance, actually, I'm going to give the example of my business partner in Ottawa. He is at a point where so he's still owner operator, and he has, all the clients know him, and he doesn't clean anymore, but he is still very involved and in touch with his clients, with the team, and he goes to jobs to supervise and so on. And I'm trying to get him to replace himself as the manager. He's not cleaning anymore, but he's still managing hands-on. As the owner, he should replace also that task in order for him to be able to work on the business and grow it and so on, and not be his own limitation. In the sense of, if he is unavailable, sick, on vacation, whatever it might be, the business will go down, or even drop for be on pause for a little while, which is non-sustainable. It's probably something similar that you experienced. So this leap of faith of deciding, okay, I'm going to delegate like what I do. I have this business on my shoulders. I'm going to put it on someone else's shoulders. It is actually it's a real concern for a lot of people, a real worry, because are they, is this manager going to take care of the business just as well as me? Am I not going to have a massive cut in my income as well? Because paying a manager comes out of the profit and potentially your income as the owner. So all those concerns, and that's why I mean it's a leap of faith. Because if you've done your work well in attracting and hiring the right person, training that person fully, and at some point you have to jump that step and not just be behind their shoulders and looking at what they do, fully relying on them, do or die. And at the end of the day, the surprise is often in the income part, where if you actually have a performance manager running your business, you actually end up making a lot more money, because not only your time is better allocated into, I don't know, finding some larger accounts, or improving the processes, reducing costs, whatever it might be, but also you enjoy this part of business ownership a lot more, because now you're hands off. You're literally making money in your sleep, on the back of maybe a couple of months, a couple of years of sweat. But now it's a very enjoyable feeling to know that your business is pretty much self-sustained, and generating you an income, as without you needed in it.
Well, and I think that's something that we all need to understand, that we can become more empowered when we share with somebody else, when we let somebody else come in and work with us. I hate to say for us, because if they're working with us, they're going to take ownership, and we're going to make more money. Okay. But they're also going to make more money. They're going to feel good about coming in at the beginning of the day and say, hey, this is the place where I want to work. And a lot of times, like I said, I come from the generation of the 50s and 60s, where it was like, you do it all. Well, that's ridiculous, because even today, I have to delegate to other people, because if I don't, I am totally burned out. And I love what I do, so why put myself in that situation? So tell me a little bit about Property Guys. You went from a cleaning service to getting into this company that not only is in a different city, it's in a different country. I mean, that has to be a culture shock too.
Actually, more than that, it is a new model, a new concept in that country, because it's a model that comes from Canada and does not exist in the US, and it's not really comparable to anything. It's very unique in its approach. So think Airbnb or Uber 20 years ago when it started, it was like, wow, what is this new thing? But disrupting the industry, and that's really the key word here with Property Guys. So Property Guys for now 25 years has been disrupting the real estate industry by offering an alternative way, an alternative solution to buying and selling real estate. The main issue that people have in when they want to sell their property, for instance, I don't know if you've been through the process of selling your home or
Yes.
commercial property. You have. So you probably got a real estate agent, paid a commission, and you also had to get a lawyer. You might also have had to get a stager to organize your house, and a photographer, and so on and so forth. So all of that end up costing you as the seller quite a bit of money that comes out of the value of your property, this equity that your property has gained, your home has gained over the past 5, 10, 15 years. Well, all of that, or a large portion of that, is flushed down the drain just to sell that house. Doesn't really make sense. Doesn't feel fair, right? Yeah. And so what Property Guys offers, it is, so as a seller, you can choose a package that contains all the services that you need as a seller. So again, I mentioned the stager, the photographer, the appraiser, all the exposure on the MLS, on all the the platforms, the negotiation, the showings, the lawyer. So everything is included in a package. That is a one-time flat fee. And that one-time flat fee does not depend on the value of your property. Even if you have a $2 or $3 million property, it is the same flat fee. And usually it is in the 5-6 grand range on average, instead of 40, 50, 60 grand, what you would normally have to spend to sell your property. So that's really what Property Guys has done. And so you can see the value for the end clients by saving dozens of thousands of dollars in the process, but also being able to choose a package that fits them in the level of control they want to have in the process. Some people want to be more hands-on. Some people want to sell pretty much on their own, and
Sure.
others want to be fully hands-off. And so all the options are there. So that's what Property Guys does. Again, very unique, nothing out there that is quite similar. And so we're bringing this model that is very successful in Canada, very known brand in Canada, just up there with the Remax and Keller Williams, but we're bringing that to the US, and that's where I come in. So I'm in charge. I'm the head of franchise development for Massachusetts. I'm also helping with other states, but my main focus is on Massachusetts. And so my job is to find those gems, those amazing people that will become franchisee. As a side note, for those who are not familiar with a franchise model, when you want to get into business ownership, you can either start your own brand, your own business from scratch, just like I did with my cleaning company, right, or you can get a franchise, which is basically operating. It's buying a business, whether it's existing or not, but you're being under a known brand, a strong brand with a reputation, with a portfolio of clients. You're buying in all the systems and processes that might have taken you years to figure out, and lots of costly mistakes on the way. Well, you have all the systems and processes in place, the training provided to you, and also some ongoing support. So all franchise model, and I'm going to talk about Property Guys in particular, we provide marketing service, we provide lead generation service to each of our franchisees. We have a call center in-house for calls coming in and out, to call leads and potential sellers, and so on and so forth. We provide so a whole the website, the CRM, so all those things that if you were to start your own business, it would take you time to figure those things out, to learn those things, to buy those things. It costs a lot of money to get a website. It costs a lot of money to get a good CRM, graphic design, and so on and so forth. So all of that is provided to you. And so imagine you have that in a box, and that's what you buy when you buy a franchise. And you're not an employee of the franchisor, in this case, Property Guys. You own your own business, but under the brand property guys in this case. So it was important to make that distinction because I realized that a lot of people think franchise, McDonald's, Starbucks, and that's pretty much it. Now you actually have franchise in every industry. You can have franchise in the cleaning industry, or in this case in real estate, in the real estate industry. So back to what I do, I'm looking for franchisee in Massachusetts to who will acquire an exclusive territory, so a piece of the map where they are the only one, all leads, all clients are theirs. They operate under the Property Guys brand. They grow the brand recognition, and they basically have an approach. They bring this approach that is different to all the real estate market, buyers, sellers, and renters in the state. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Adventure.
Well, you know, anybody who has ever tried to sell their own home, okay, whether you try it as the owner seller or you go through a real estate broker, it's very, very difficult. The house that we sold, we lived on the edge of a national park. And the national park years before had come in and bought out a lot of people. And but we were on the edge, we were still okay. But we had a house that was over 100 years old that had been remodeled, but not necessarily remodeled properly. And so every agent who came through our house had a different idea of what we should do. And talk about putting money into that house. You know, we put money into a money pit. And when we sold the house, again, we had to make concessions with the buyer and do certain things. Our house was on the market for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Now we'd take it on and off, but for 10 years,
yeah,
we wanted to move. We wanted to move this house. And
that's frustrating.
Yeah, it was, if we had found somebody who actually could have come in like you guys, okay, say, here are these different packages, this is what we can do for you. And been honest with us, okay, because our first real estate agent, I'll never forget, we told her what we wanted to sell the house for, and she said, oh, no problem. Today, that house wouldn't sell for that, okay? So, you know, and this goes back over 20 years. So I love your concept. I was out on the internet and I was looking it up, and, you know, you're right. We can't do everything ourselves. We have to find the right people to work with. And that's what you're about.
That's right. Yeah. It's thank you for sharing that story. Actually, it's it must have been very frustrating to not be able to move. And on top of that, when you sold it, probably, you know, again, spent a couple dozen thousands of dollars to all, you know, the agent and all the service providers. For at the end of the day, I mean, probably bittersweet ending to that story. So yeah, I hear those kind of stories often because I do interact often in part with realtors and mortgage brokers a lot, because those are our best candidates. To be a franchisee, you don't actually need to be licensed as an agent. You don't even need to be in the real estate industry. We have many franchisees that are in, you know, career reconversion, you know, teachers and nurses and veterans and so on. But the fact is, someone who has experience in real estate, someone who knows the market, so real estate agent, mortgage broker, real estate investors, those people are, you know, amongst the best candidates for this. And, you know, I talk to them therefore on a daily basis. And I do hear a lot of frustration from the client, from the market. We see it more and more. I mean, there has been recently a massive lawsuit against Keller Williams and the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, due in part, and it's going to be hard to summarize, but due in part with unfair practices, basically, and unethical practices with coercion between the seller's agent and the buyer's agent and stuff like that. Basically, people are complaining about this model, and it makes sense because it is an industry that hasn't really changed in over 100 years. It has been the same in, you know, over 100 and 120 years, something like this. The thing is, house prices have skyrocketed over the past, you know, 10, 15, 20 years. And so having the same, you know, commission system when your house is worth literally 10 to 50 times more than it was, you know, worth a few years ago, or, you know, 100 years ago. That's why, there is such a need for a change. That's why it's so exciting, to be part of this change and this disruption. And that's why I'm targeting, in particular, real estate agents and mortgage brokers, because they see this, frustration from clients, from people who don't really have any other option to buy or sell their property. And so a lot of agents, not all, some are very, feel threatened by this, but some that are actually pretty open-minded and see that frustration from the client, they tend to want to become franchisee, to be able to, offer something different than every other agent in the state, but also bring so much more value to the clients. And the clients do, become raving fans after using this model, because, think about it. If you had a seamless experience, or I would say a smoother experience, and you had saved dozens of thousands of dollars in the process, you had more transparency in the process and so on, you probably would go out of your way to promote
Right.
that model that you used. That's what happened with property guys. So it's I think for real estate agents that deal with sometimes some unhappy people, and have to wait a long time before being paid for the property to be sold, so on and so forth. It is a real breath of fresh air to have a different solution and different approach like this.
So I started out in the beginning saying that you've lived in many places, you've been around the world, and then you told us as we started recording that you are actually in Malaysia working.
That's
I
right.
mean, what a difference our world is today, that we can be wherever we want to be and enjoy life. So
Yeah.
what took you to Malaysia? Are you there on a vacation, or are you actually there working?
So I actually have that question often by locals here. They literally always ask me, where are you from? And, oh, are you here working, or are you here studying? I'm like, no, I'm living here. I'm here to live. And it's like, but wait, do you work here? And I'm like, I just live here. So, so to take a step back in my journey. So when I was out west in Canada. So when I moved to Canada, one of the first job that I got there, because I had experience in sales, I wanted to have experience in sales in English, because my English was not that good at that time. So I started working for a company, basically in door-to-door sales on commission, which is one of the hardest jobs that you can do, but also one of the most rewarding. Not only money wise, you can make really really good money. I mean, people make $500,000 to over $1 million a year working, not even the entire year in door-to-door sales. It's really an industry where you can make big bucks. But I don't think this is where the biggest value is. I think it is in the way it shapes you as a person, as a better communicator, as a better listener, as having tenacity, having so all those skills that you gain. So anyways, I've done that for a couple of years because I really enjoyed this personal growth I was getting. And also I was making good money by working only 4 or 5 months, only during the summer. And then I was going to travel for the rest, 6 months a year. And so that's when I came to Southeast Asia the first time. And I traveled all over Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, and so on, Cambodia, Laos. And I think that's really where I got the travel bug. Even though, I lived in France, then I moved to Canada, but that was, one big experience going to, from country to country as a vacation, and getting to really discover the world and a whole different, culture and type of people and food and landscapes and so on. That's where, I've decided, what, I want to do that every year. So I've done that for about 3 years, where I was working for a few months and then traveling. I traveled all over the US. I traveled all over Europe. And at some point I've decided, what, I think it is not sustainable long term to just work a few months, make a bunch of money, and then go spend it all traveling.
Right.
So that's actually where the entrepreneurial, I started having the idea of, it would be nice to have a business that either I can work on, that basically I can work on as I'm traveling. I was seeing people having, travel bloggers, people who, work online, IT, and so on, literally working from the beach or from the coffee shop, in those countries that I was traveling in. So that's where I started having the idea. And shortly after, I started my first business, as I mentioned. Long story short, so back to now. When I managed to be fully hands off with my first business with Teammates, and I started working with property guys, I was actually ready to move to Massachusetts, to relocate, and then realized that it would not make that much sense. It wouldn't add that much value. I mean, it would be a pretty big deal financially and so on for me to relocate to Boston on a project that might take some time before being successful. So I started, I was working from home in Halifax, and at that point I was working from home on both my businesses. So why am I not taking this show on the road? And so I was starting to make plans to go travel, but I got introduced remotely to my wife, who is now my wife, who was living in Kuwait. She's a Syrian, but living in Kuwait. Her family, I was living very close from her family in Halifax, Canada, but she lived in Kuwait. Anyways, I got introduced to her remotely. 4 months later, I was in Kuwait and we got married.
Oh, wow.
That was last year. Yeah, so that was last year, and so I lived in Kuwait you see how it actually coincided, really well, because I was on the verge of going to travel, pretty much full time and work on my businesses remotely, and it just so happened that marrying my wife got me off to move away from Canada. And so that was a year and a half ago. We stayed in Kuwait for 7 months, traveled to neighboring countries. I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to Dubai, and so on. And then we moved to Malaysia, because I had Malaysia in mind for a while. And so we've been here now for 9 months actually. We're not here forever, but it's a great stepping stone. Not only it's a great country in many ways, it's super safe, it's very low cost of living, extremely low cost of living, great people, great food. I mean, I have the beach here, I have the jungle right there, so the quality of life is amazing. But also, it's a great step, place to be able to travel to all the neighboring countries who are, wonderful as well. For anyone who have been to Southeast Asia, have you been to Southeast Asia actually?
I have. The only foreign country I've ever been to is Canada. So, there's a lot of places that I have not visited, but I will tell you, as a podcaster, I'm very lucky because I get to talk to individuals like yourself who have traveled, who are in different places of the world. I mean, when I decided in high school that I wanted to go into broadcasting, my parents thought that was the craziest move I ever could make. I mean, that was back in the 1960s. There were no women really in broadcasting at the time. But I never had the dream of what I'm doing today, which I think is so wonderful, because just like you, I can take my computer on the road and I can podcast or coach from anywhere. And I do, I go to visit my sons, one is in Texas, one's in Illinois. And it's like, if I want to go for a visit, I can, but my work can go with me. And again,
that's awesome.
If I choose that I want to take a couple of days off or a couple of weeks off, like I did in
Come
December,
here.
I did it. And what I want people to understand is that we create our own success, and our success is what pleases us. So I've been asked many times, what is your ranking in podcasting? It's like, I'm not concerned about my ranking. When somebody contacts me and says, I remember that show. I remember, when you talked to Karim, I heard about property guys. I heard about all these different things. Either they want your services or they want to become similar to you. And I tell people, you don't want to become the next Karim. You want to become similar. You want to take what he's done and see how that fits into your life. And I think you're still learning. I think you've admitted, you're in Malaysia now, and that's great. But, next week you might wake up and say, hey, there's someplace else we need to be.
We'll likely be coming back to North America within the next 6 months. Not sure exactly when, not sure exactly which direction, we're gonna do some stuff on the way, including, my parents in France and so on. But that's true. I mean, I have no idea where I'm gonna be 6 months from now. I don't know where I'm gonna be probably even 1 month from now, to be frank. And it's very freeing to not focus on where, I mean, not focus too much on where you want to be, where you should be, where you wish you were, whatnot. To just focus on the moment. Obviously, you need to have some goals, something to reach, and an action plan to reach it, but also to be flexible along the way, and be comfortable being uncomfortable, being out of your comfort zone. Something might not happen the way you want it. Big deal. Do something else. It's not the end of the world, and you have to be able to bounce back like this. I feel like a lot of people maybe tend to dwindle too much on either on failures or on challenges, or on shoulda, woulda, shoulda, coulda, instead of actually focusing either on the now or on the next step that they can control, on the path that they can control, instead of focusing on the past, which they cannot control, or too far in the future, and which they cannot control either. Have a goal, but then focus on each step that you're taking to reach that goal. And you might reach another goal, and that's great.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners how they can find you if they want to follow you.
Sure. So they can Google my name, actually, because I realized, most of what you would find on Google is related to property guys. But to contact me directly, I mean, there is my email and my professional phone number, fairly easily pretty easy to find. But on LinkedIn, usually LinkedIn, that's where I'm the most approachable, and I love to to start conversations with people who want to know more about property guys, or don't want to know more about entrepreneurship, business ownership. I'm pretty open to those kind of conversations. But if they want to know more about property guys, again, they can Google my name. They can Google property guys franchise or property guys Massachusetts, and they'll find a lot of materials. We have videos. We have my website should be in the top results. And if you're someone who is either in Massachusetts, in Texas, Florida, or Connecticut, but Massachusetts is my main focus, as I mentioned, and you are in the real estate industry, or you're an aspiring entrepreneur, it's your New Year resolution, you want to start your first business, you're sick of your 9 to 5, this could be a good opportunity for you. So don't hesitate to reach out and to learn more. And very non-salesy, because I think it makes no sense in my industry to push a franchise on someone who's not a good fit. We're really looking for people who are mutually good fit, and so it makes the conversation very casual and easygoing. Let's put it this way.
Well, we're going to put all this information in the show notes, so there's no excuse
thank you.
for somebody to say, hey, I didn't pick up on it. And it's like, that's okay. You can listen to the podcast again, or you can just go to the show notes and find Karim. Thank you for meeting with me today. What time is it right now in Malaysia?
Right now it is almost 10 p.m. 10 p.m.
Okay.
And I still have another 3 or 4 meetings and some admin work to do. It's okay. I mean, it's part of the challenges that come to, obviously it's not all rose and rainbows and whatnot. It does come with challenges to be working abroad, and the time difference is one thing, but it's a very small aspect. And thank you for having me. It was really lovely chatting with you.
Well, have a great day, and safe travels. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.